Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Gwent Phone Call meeting on Thursday, the 20th of May 2021. Apologies for the slight delay in start the meeting and the technical issues. However, I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting today. Risk assessments have been carried out before this meeting and everything is in compliance with the COVID regulation and with the county board regulations for holding meetings. First of all, congratulations to Dr. Campbell on the reappointment and a Chief Police and Crime Commissioner. And welcome to the meeting and look forward to working with you again to the rest of the panel over the next years. We will do a roll call for the meeting. I'll start with myself. I'm Jill Howard, independent member and chair. And I'll move to my left and move along the
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Coleman, representative from County Borough and Legislature.
Councillor Craig Ready, playing the Gwent County Borough Council.
Councillor Lisa Winner, playing the Gwent County Borough Council.
International cooperative.
Councillor Christine, the
Councillor Jason Gordon, the Councillor Committee. Councillor Knight, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor from Monmouthshire. And Councillor Neeson also from Monmouthshire.
Gavin Gold, past Mr. Chief Finance Officer.
Jeff Cuthbert, Police and Crime Commissioner of Gwent.
Charlotte and Thomas Officer. Thank you very much for the meeting. So the meeting is being webcast, public hearing, involved with the meeting and make the attended the meeting Marshall Davis. Members will use their microphones and officers will use their microphones when they speak. If there are any technical difficulties, they may be able to Spanish any proceedings, at which point in June, and they'll just say copy appear on the screen. We're not anticipating any technical difficulties until we have more up to now, and the meeting will progress smoothly. So,
okay, my technology, obviously, we've got technical problems, so Elaine Thomas is showing on the screen as Charlotte Airlines, and Mr. Jeff, the Commissioner, is showing on their side.
thank you, Karen. So, we've got the reform, the only thing to the first item on the agenda, which is an apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Baker and Councillor Kay.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2, following declaration of interest in any of the panel members in respect of the specific item on the agenda. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3. Agenda item 3 is proposal appointment of the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner, and I will hand over to the Commissioner to show the agenda item.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I'm going to thank you for your welcome and to congratulate you on being re-elected. I'm certainly very pleased with you re-elected, and I'm very pleased that I hold on the party. So it's
And I thank you very much for your welcome, Claire, and your congratulations on my re-election. I take my re-election extremely seriously. And I'm looking forward to the next 3 years in post. I do need to stress that it is a 3-year term. Normally it would be 4 years. As we know, the last term is extended by 1 year because of the COVID restrictions, and in order to bring it back onto the schedule, the government decided that this term would be just 3 years. So a lot can happen over 3 years. And certainly I'm looking forward to working with my team to continue the work and to develop new policies in the light of constantly changing situations regarding crime and the way in which policing has to organise itself. One of the tasks going forward, of course, will be the development of a new police and crime plan. Thoughts and work are at a preliminary stage with dealing with that very shortly. And whilst I anticipate that the key headings that are there now will still reappear, there's undoubtedly going to be changes as a result of the experience over the last 5 years. And very, as I put in my supporting statement in the Annex A, has played a clear role in terms of supporting the work up to now, and indeed has played a much wider role in terms of negotiating on behalf of Welsh PCCs and with key partners like the Welsh Government, particularly, and the need for services within Wales. There is certainly in terms of criminal justice, it's played a key role, often and usually deputising for me as chair of the Gwent Criminal Justice Board, and indeed representing us very well indeed on the All Wales Criminal Justice Board, now leading justice in Wales. So I have no doubt whatsoever that to continue with the team that I have and the senior team that I have, and I want to pay tribute to Frank Williams and Darwin as well, because the support that they have given me during the last 5 years has been outstanding. I think that the changes that we brought about and in terms of our structure places us very well indeed for the future, and that they will continue, in my view, as my desire, to be very critical in the delivery of all that work. She has, as I said, represented me on a number of occasions, played a crucial role in terms of negotiations with the Welsh Government on Welsh law, such as the removal of the defence of reasonable punishment, so-called smacking ban, where the experience as a former Deputy Children's Commissioner for Wales has certainly come to the fore. Finally, I would mention that, of course, we all know that the last 15 months has been very unusual, if not difficult, for all public services, and that includes the police in terms of working during COVID restrictions, and as part of the senior management team has played a clear role in liaising with Gwent Police to ensure that our main functions of continue, even though under the circumstances that have prevailed. Much of our normal work very difficult indeed, and we've learned a lot as a result of working through the COVID regulation. So, with those opening remarks there, can I invite you to in turn invite the panel to support my nomination as for the Thomas to continue as Deputy Police President. And incidentally, I have made a number of public statements during the election campaign so that the people of Gwent are aware of what my intentions are in terms of appointing my deputy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your report there, and providing that information. Some members already expressed an interest in questions, so I'll start with Councillor Mark Temple.
We said please.
Okay, Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, congratulations. Ms. Thomas went through a very rigorous selection process some years ago, and went through very thoroughly, I understand. At that time, the candidates for that post were asked a series of questions. And obviously, I'd like to reflect on those questions today for your data. I've got 2 questions of Ms. Thomas. Over the past 4 years, the biggest challenge that faced you, what was the biggest challenge that faced you as a person over those 4 years? And the second question is, as a Deputy Police Commissioner, you were in a position of great influence. There's no position of creating those positive relationships. Has this process that you've been on, genuinely been on, has it been successful? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Manhal, for the opportunity to be present today and to have a good and hopefully robust dialogue with yourselves and Councillor Eason, thank you for starting that process with your first question. I think what I would want to start by saying is that being Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner in Gwent over the last 5 years has been an absolute honour and a privilege. It is by far an exceptional role, and it's one that I absolutely take with integrity, commitment, and seek to achieve my role in office to achieve the remit of the Police and Crime Commissioner for Gwent, absolutely being driven for and by our communities, making sure that we listen, hear and respond. So I think the first question, what is the biggest challenge, in itself is quite a significant question to answer, because the role of the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner is so varied, so wide and so all-encompassing. But absolutely at the heart of that work is serving our communities in Gwent, doing that with absolute integrity, commitment, and hopefully using my experience in order to work hard and deliver our remit. The Commissioner has already made reference to the last 15 months. And from my perspective, sitting as we did probably 18 months ago in the Police and Crime panel, little could we have anticipated the emergence of the COVID pandemic, the impact that that has had on everyone's lives, on the lives of every single member of our communities, of our lives as family members, as carers and as professionals, but most importantly in this context, the public servants navigating our way through what has been the most unprecedented of times, the most challenging of times. And I would want to pay tribute, and I think it is only fair that we reflect that probably the biggest challenge was one that when I went before the Commissioner in a robust recruitment process 5 years ago, and then appeared before you as a Police and Crime panel, little could we have thought that the biggest challenge was going to be dealing with a pandemic and all that that entailed. So from my perspective, I sought through my role as Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner to support the Commissioner and his team to enable the Chief Constable and her police force to be able to respond, support our communities, thinking absolutely at the heart of everything we do about the welfare of our officers and staff, making sure that our officers in those unprecedented times were able to provide their support to their community members in such challenging circumstances, whilst making sure that we care for their health and well-being. And equally, working with our public service partners, ensuring that the strategic coordinating group was able to coordinate its work across our public services in Gwent, supporting Gwent Police in their role as chairing that strategic coordinating group, and then liaising with Welsh Government in relation to coordination on a national and local level for our communities. And I'm sure that you're probably sitting there and thinking, well, it's all well and good for you as the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner to talk about what we've done as public services, what we've done as communities, and what we've done as teams. And I think the role of Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner as first one of serving and supporting the Commissioner and the Chief Constable and our communities, but I also see that I have an individual role and a leadership role to play. And I think my role has been very significant in terms of providing that leadership, providing that support, and continuing to develop innovative partnerships. And my contribution, I suppose I would say, rests in twofold. One, on behalf of the Commissioner, with Sean Curley, the Chief Executive, and Darren Garland-Cass, the Chief Finance Officer, attending the daily goal meeting that Gwent Police had on to oversee the delivery, understand the risk, the threat understand the changing legislation, understanding the changing needs of our communities, and really to be in those board meetings on behalf of the public, ensuring that we can provide our support, but also very much in the same role as you as a panel, providing that challenge, ensuring accountability and transparency. So I think it has been a very supportive role in ensuring that Gwent Police has been able to fulfil its functions, whilst the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner is filled its accountability role in holding the police to account on the discharge of their service. The second area that I would really want to draw attention to has been working to reflect, prioritise and work collaboratively to ensure that those in our communities who need to be safeguarded, who need protection, who may be vulnerable, were well catered for. And we all know that as we went into lockdown, that our concerns became absolutely heightened for those in our communities who perhaps didn't have the support they needed in their homes, or who perhaps were living in households where there was violence, where there was fear, where there was abuse. And I work with my colleagues in Gwent Police to raise our concerns, to ensure that we gave a very strong voice of reassurance that Gwent Police, that our public service partners, that the Gwent Regional Safeguarding Board was open for business. Not only were that we open for business, that we were going to be proactive in ensuring that we reached out to people who might require our support in these absolutely unprecedented times. And I worked with the Gwent Safeguarding Board to really drive how could we think about those members of our communities who were impacted by domestic violence and who were impacted by child abuse or elder abuse, and that we as public services would follow. So for me, the biggest challenge was one that was unforeseen back 5 years ago, but one that I think we have all seen and risen to over the last year. And I would want to pay tribute to the people of Gwent more than anybody, who have worked with, who have really undertaken their roles in communities in keeping each other safe and ensuring that we can come out of this hopeful period of pandemic with hope and look into the future. In terms of your second question, Councillor Eason, positive work and have we been successful? And these opportunities, I think, are a time to reflect. Reflect really on achievements and success. From my perspective, I hope that I have demonstrated and can continue to demonstrate that as Deputy Peace and Crime Commissioner, I've shown leadership. I've shown leadership for the Office of the Peace and Crime Commissioner in Gwent Police, but I've also worked in partnership in order to strive to make change and to achieve change, to influence, achieve action and change at the local, regional and national level. And sometimes that change has been slow. Sometimes, as all of you will know, it can be frustrating, but having the perseverance has been absolutely important. So my, look back in terms of success does relate to that COVID response. It relates to the firm belief and conviction that the Police and Crime Commissioner and I have on achieving a one public service approach, that we, in exercising our functions as responsible stewards for the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner and for the police, play our part in marshalling our public services. But I think in particular, the role has been around supporting the Commissioner to have a really successful delivery of Gwent Police. We all know we have been fortunate to have appointed a new Chief Constable who is providing the leadership, and I played my part in supporting the appointment of the Chief Constable in relation to her appointment process. We've increased the numbers of police officers with an increase of 160 officers over the last 5 years before we even moved into the period of operational upgrade, which we may come back to. and holding to account. And I really want to pay tribute to the work of this police and crime panel, and I think we have worked really successfully in, and I have valued the relationship and support and challenge and the appropriate challenge by you as a committee in driving that success. And I suppose I could talk, I will be guided by you, Chair, in relation to how much you want me to reflect the evidence achievements. But certainly my leadership for the Commissioner has been in relation to particular areas of work around children and young people, violence against women and girls, the work the Commissioner has already referenced in relation to criminal justice, both at a Gwent level and an All Wales level, striving absolutely for the implementation of our strategies and policies on victims, with a real commitment on early intervention and prevention, and absolutely at the heart of what I bring, and I started by talking about integrity and values, is the real belief and commitment in achieving equality, inclusion, and in particular in fighting at all times against violence, abuse and hate. But I would use one example really, Councillor Easton, that I would want to demonstrate and evidence to you about my ability and success in my role as Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. And that really has been around the emerging area around serious and organised crime and the impact in particular of serious violence and organised crime on our communities, in particular in Newport. And through developing a positive working relationship with the Home Office, we were able to attract additional funding to enable us to pilot work on serious and organised crime, thinking about how we needed to develop a really integrated strategy to combat the use of drugs, the exploitation of vulnerable people in our communities, and the real negative harm that that creates to people in our communities. And that extra resources from the Home Office enabled us to put a really innovative package of support and interventions in place, working collaboratively with Gwent Police, working collaboratively with colleagues in Newport City Council, driving interventions from interventions with St Giles Trust, working with those children and young people who were being exploited, abused, and who perhaps were offending by their involvement in serious and organised crime, to work with Bernardo's in looking about how we supported our families and how we supported those children who perhaps were in danger of entering into that offending behaviour, and then working with Positive Futures Newport Live to think through how we could divert young people away from crime, away from harm, and away from offending behaviour. And most importantly, working with Crime Stoppers UK through their Fearless campaign to work proactively and preventatively in our primary schools to raise awareness for children and young people around the dangers and harm that getting involved in drugs, serious and more organised crime can create for individuals, for their families and for their communities. And now that suite of interventions has been incredibly successful. We've integrated that work now into our ways of working. As we've discussed here at the panel, we are looking to draw that work out across all of the local authority areas across Gwent. We've been able to share that work and share the learning with the Home Office and with Welsh Government. But that work doesn't stop, and I suppose that's really my desire here, is to convey the achievements we've made collectively, and those are achievements that you have supported as a police and crime panel. But it's also to recognise how much work there is still to do. And I appear before you today with that energy, commitment and drive to continue that work. And that work of the pilot from serious and organised crime led us to do some work with Newport City Council on understanding the impact of exploitation on children, of criminal exploitation on children. And we published a report called Understanding the Triggers with Newport City Council ourselves, and the Youth Offending Service to really look at providing an evidence base about how we as public services can do better, will do better by marshalling our work together to provide creative solutions to our most vulnerable people in our communities. So I hope that provides you certainly with an overview of both the challenges, how we've responded to those, and the role that I have played, I think, in Gwent.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I found you to be an invaluable link between myself as a councillor and Mr. Kirkwood, the Eastern County Commissioner, albeit in a limited capacity. It's not every day, but I found you very helpful, and I would be supporting moving forward with the staff to be reappointed. I like your answers. I think it's forward thinking and quite important, particularly the aspects of young children and abuse and that the problems which we find in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, Councillor Cardinal.
Thank you, Chair, to you. Thank you, Valerie. Councillor Tony asked me to install the offenders and that, apart from because my questions have been covered more than adequately by Valerie. But on a personal note, I'm new to the relatively new to the panel, and I just wondered if I could have an insight, Valerie, into you as a person as such. Thank you.
Certainly. I am, as I say, I hold my values and integrity are probably the cornerstone of who I am. Values and integrity of social justice, of human rights, of belief in people. And I am hugely committed to work with and for people who require our support. I have over 20 years experience of working in Wales, in public service, in the main, working prior to becoming the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner in children's services, both statutory services and voluntary services, always in partnership, always working together, working innovatively to create solutions and really focus on those at greatest need who need our assistance and support. And I think that, as my colleagues will know, and my professional commitment and experience and hard work is very much a cornerstone of who I am. So wanting to get to know me as a person, I could talk to you about my family life, and I could talk to you about my interests outside of my work. But inextricably, my work is who I am. My commitment in terms of the communities I serve, wherever they may be, is who I am. And that element of social justice and supporting people who need our assistance, whether that's in a personal or professional capacity, is who I am. Before I became the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner, I was, as the Commissioner has mentioned, the Deputy Commissioner and Chief Executive for the Children's Commissioner, working at a strategic senior level to influence policy, law, practice. I think that's, again, very much what I've sought to do in my career, has been very much working at the strategic, at the national, influencing laws. But at the heart of that has been recognising that the most important aspect of that work is listening and hearing and acting on those who need our support the most. And I truly believe that what our role as public servants is to interface between those who make our legislation, those who make the decisions, those who allocate resources, with those who need our assistance and support. And that those who need our assistance and support have an absolute valuable an important role to play in shaping the way that we work in our communities. And I was very fortunate to, well, not fortunate. I worked in the Children's Commissioner's Office during what became Operation Palliac. And I think in Wales, the development of the Children's Commissioner for Wales was as a direct result of an understanding and a realisation that children who were entrusted into our care in the 1970s, right until the 1990s, were abused whilst in that care. And that those children were abused because they didn't have a voice, they weren't listened to, they weren't believed systemically or systematically by us in positions of authority and in our public services. And many of the organisations that I've worked for throughout my career have been around providing that voice. And it's not because we think it's a good thing to do, or because it's the box to tick, or it's because it's the thinking of the day. But we will only protect people, we will only safeguard people if we listen, hear and act. And whilst I was at the Children's Commission, and whilst the Waterhouse Tribunal had met, had deliberated and had set laws as a result of the investigation into the abuse of children in North Wales, the re-emergence of concerns about children who are now adults in their 30s and 40s who've been abused as children in North Wales had never been heard. And we started to take calls at the Children's Commission from adults who wanted to talk, who wanted authority to hear, and that led to a re-investigation of abuse in North Wales through Operation Palliac, was achieved new convictions, new sentencing, and it gave victims who had been abused, who hadn't had the opportunity to speak for 30 years, the opportunity to tell their story. And that for me was a huge privilege to be able to support people to provide their testimony and to achieve justice for those people. I suppose the other thing I would say is that one of the things I truly believe in is creativity and innovation. And so my early career was shaped, I was involved in shaping both the first young carer services in Wales, in Flintshire, here in Bargoed, and in Carmarthenshire, securing funding with with Welsh Government and with local authorities, recognising that at the time we hadn't really given attention to children and young people who lived in homes providing care for sick and disabled relatives. And I also, very early on after the Waterhouse Tribunal, was involved in developing advocacy services for children and young people who were in care to make sure we learned the lessons, because I think that's the other aspect that is fundamental to the person I am, is that we shouldn't be blaming people wherever they work. We should learn lessons, we should hear, and we should find solutions for the future. But going back to probably the person that I absolutely am, I'm Welsh, but I'm an internationalist. Many of you may know or may not know that I was born in Switzerland of Welsh parents, both who were Welsh speaking. So the Welsh language is very important to me. My Welsh culture is very important to me. But my understanding of Wales in the place that we stand in the world is equally important. And I had the opportunity after leaving school before coming to university in this country to spend a year working in Swaziland, excuse me, in Swaziland in southern Africa. And I worked in Swaziland in an international school. But the international school was an international school with a difference. It was part of the United World College movement, which provided scholarships. We have Atlantic College here in Cardiff, many of you may know. But Woodford and Flower was this part of the United World College network, and I was there as a volunteer and then a teacher. And it provided scholarships for children and young people all over the world based on their merit, not based on their ability to pay for their education. But most importantly, it gave opportunities, because this was at the time of apartheid in South Africa, and Swaziland neighboured South Africa. It provided black young boys and girls from South Africa with the opportunity to be educated in a way that they would not be entitled to in South Africa. And working under apartheid, providing education to young people who could not be educated in their homeland, gave me a real grounding in terms of that integrity, that values, that understanding about making sure that we provide people with the services they require to help them achieve their potential, have been an absolute grounding. To do that when I was 17, 18, that absolute commitment to challenging oppression, diversity, and helping people to achieve their potential, that's the person I am.
Thank you for that. May I say that you've been very open in what you've in that statement that you just made, and I'm sure that you bring past experience, empathy, and understanding to the role of Deputy Commissioner, and see that you understand all the issues that we have in Gwent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
There's a question from the panel. Okay.
What? Oh, I do. Sorry, were you going to ask the question?
Yeah, no, just offer it.
I'll keep one.
Thank you very much. So yeah, it's so interesting to hear, having worked with you for the last few years, some of the facts that you shared that's really interesting. And what we hear, it does evidence the person of the kind from our experience working with you. Going forward over the next few years, what do you think are the two priorities that you would personally be looking to ensure that you would be able to address with that really going forward?
Question, I managed the question, but what has been the two priorities I think is always the challenge. So I am eager, committed, and so enthusiastic to serve another term, to support the Commissioner in his in his new term, to work with the team, and the team for me is Team Gwent. That's the team of the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, that's the Chief Constable and her team, and that's this panel. And I think that we will succeed. I think the two areas I think that are absolutely vital, and if I could preface that because I am going to pick two, but I will preface that the absolute priority is to continue to keep our community safe and to respond to the pandemic, but hopefully to build for the future. So I think that is the absolute task in hand. But in terms of the role of the deputy and the role of the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, I think it has to be to focus on delivering that new police and crime plan that has at its heart victims, crime prevention and reduction of crime, that understands that the police and crime plan is the vehicle for driving the excellence in our police service, making sure that we deliver the extra police officers through Operation Uplift, that we deliver the new PCSOs, that we have been afforded the opportunity through the Welsh Government, that we achieve the crime reduction, that we are absolutely committed to doing so, that we have the resources to meet the financial challenge to deliver that, that we support our volunteers through our Citizens in Policing scheme to drive our excellence in our workforce. And at the heart of that is understanding the importance of our well-being of our officers and staff. So my first priority is absolutely the new police and crime plan, setting the vision and direction, and at the heart of that is delivery. We've only got 3 years. We can't take the time, we can't afford to take the time to spend too long developing policies and strategy. We obviously have to do that. We need clear plans, and we need to be able to evidence and demonstrate the impact we achieve. But we know what the challenges are in our communities, and we need to get on with the business. And hopefully with your support, we can do that. The second area of priority for me is around legitimacy, trust, equality, and really challenging all violence, abuse and hate. And I probably have, adequately pulled together about 3 or 4 different strands. But I think at the heart of that, we're here to serve our communities. Our communities need to trust us. Sometimes, and I think we have demonstrated, we have built that relationship with our communities. But the whole Black Lives Matter discussions, and we've had numerous discussions with our communities over the last year with our independent advisory group, people still have huge challenges of trust in our public services, in our trust in our policing services, and making sure that we build trusted community relationships. But at the heart of that is understanding that all our communities are the communities of need, of interest, and that we need to absolutely make sure that we have inclusive, open, accessible services, that as the Office of Truth and Crime Commissioner, we're transparent, we're accountable, and that we are listening and hearing. And in particular, I think there's some real challenges as we move to digitalisation, automation, to doing everything we've seen this morning about, these machines have been absolutely the lifeline for all of us working in public services over the last 15 months. But when they don't work, we need to find other ways of making them work as well. We also need to recognise that not all of our communities are connected, are able to be digitally literate. So I think building that legitimacy, that confidence with our communities, making sure our victims know that we are there fighting for them day in, day out, but making sure that we don't let technology run away with ourselves, and absolutely think about how to promote, innovate and support new technology whilst ensuring that people in our communities are engaged, supported, no matter where they are in Gwent, and no matter how they are able to connect to the internet and to the digital world.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart, do you have a lot?
Yeah, primarily, I think the whole panel imagine really impressed with the depth of your answers this morning. You've been more than adequate to prove that you are more than capable of actually carrying on the work you've done for the last 5 years. You've seen this first time as a panel when you had to subject for the commissioner on different occasions, and I would fully support the reappointment so we can carry on this work with the commissioner for the next 2 years. Thanks.
Very much, I think we've just practical probably the feeling that needs to do with the planning and they have been really sometimes that we very much maybe. I'll be taking more questions from panel members. Yeah, I'll hand back to the Commissioner for a further comment.
Thank you very much. Just a few very quick comments indeed. Larry is being honest, he doesn't point out that I will that you see the MBE for our services to children some years ago, so it's been recognized at that level. Indeed, currently, I'm allowed by statute, of course, to appoint a deputy. I'm not obliged to. I have never regretted for one moment the decision that I took back in 2016 to appoint a deputy. The contribution has been absolutely essential. Of course, in the process, I didn't know who was going to be appointed, or I was 45, let's all together, many of them very, very good. The other doctors was 13 and then 4, and Larry clearly emerged as the Some of my colleagues have chosen not to, that's a matter for them. However, it's worth pointing out that the Home Secretary, Pretty Patel, in a statement has now made it clear that ahead of the next election, the post of Deputy Prison Crime Commissioner will become mandatory. And what's more, which I'm not too sure about, the Deputy Prison Crime Commissioner must be of the same political party as the Prison Crime Commissioner. Now, people will know that I'm a Labour member, very committed to my party, but I was absolutely adamant that any appointment that I made would be by an open selection process and be based on merit and merit alone. And I've never had any cause to regret that. Larry is not a member of my party or any other party from that I've not required it, although I have always been for someone who shares the same values and principles that I do. And I will be delighted if you can confirm Larry Thomas in post. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no further comments from members. And in terms of the recommendation from the report recommends that we agree with the policy appointment of Larry Thomas as Deputy Prison Crime Commissioner, Gwent, which obviously we've carried out for our question today, and that we would make a recommendation to the Commissioner as to whether or not the candidate should be appointed. As Chair, I'm going to make the recommendation that we do reappoint Larry Thomas as the Deputy Prison Crime Commissioner. Can I have someone to move that recommendation, please? Thank you. And second, I think that's pretty much unanimous. So on behalf of the panel, I'd like to congratulate Larry Thomas, and very much look forward to continuing the excellent work with you as a panel, and to seeing how the Prison Crime Commissioner and Gwent place develop over the next couple of years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We did, take that forward.
Yes, okay. Can you just confirm that for a formal vote? If I could have a show of hands, please, so that I can follow it. Thank you very much, colleagues, for using that there. Thank you, Councillor Mann. It's still confirmed. So, thank you very much. Are there any other matters for the? No, okay. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. It's been wonderful to have a physical meeting, actually, and to see everybody in the flash. I'd like to particularly thank the Council officers, Charlotte and Blair, to the support of people pass on our thanks for setting up today and making sure everything's run as smoothly as it has. I think that's been the best thing to do. So thank you very much, and I confirm the meeting closed at 10:55. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierre.